everyone. Welcome to the first Drunk Bible Study bonus edition of 2020 Fun. That is 2021. Here we are. It's 2020 fun time.
Yeah, hell yeah.
So, new year, new book, Isaiah. We started it today, and it was an interesting one. It was a lot of like Isaiah waxing poetic. I don't know. He just was kind of talking about this vision that he had, and that was basically like talking about the things that he was seeing and that was going to eventually happen.
Isn't that kind of the nature of prophecies, though?
I suppose you're
kind of
right.
Waxing poetic and talking about your visions.
Yeah, that's true. That's a really good point. Yeah. So way in the beginning, in the first chapter that I read, it was Isaiah 1:8, like around the 8th verse. Mm-hmm. They talked about cucumbers / melons. We heard that, that there were cucumbers, there were melons. Yeah.
And it's a place no one wants to be. If you build a hut in a cucumber / melon field, who wants to go there?
I don't know. Yeah, nobody does. This is so, I don't know. What is this? This is probably the King James Bible. Said, and the daughter of Zion is left as a cottage in a vineyard, as a lodge in a garden of cucumbers, as a besieged city.
It just gets funnier every time.
Cucumbers, yeah.
Do you think that this is where VeggieTales came up with the idea of having Larry be a cucumber?
I like
Maybe.
it.
Yeah.
Well, so, okay, the daughter of Zion is a personification either of the city or the population of Jerusalem, or both together. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
I looked up the term Zion specifically, so we'll get more into that a little bit later.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so a lodge in a garden of cucumbers. Cucumber gardens required watching throughout the season, from spring to autumn, and their watcher needed a more solid edifice than a booth. Hence, such gardeners had lodges in them, i.e. permanent huts or sheds such as those seen in Palestine.
So this is like a sick burn on whoever had the job of watching cucumbers grow.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, so I'm confused because I'm like, that sounds great. It sounds lovely.
Sounds
to
peaceful.
have a little cottage in the middle of a garden of cucumbers.
And you get a refreshing salad at the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says what? The point of comparison is that in the vineyard and cucumber field, not a human being is to be seen in any direction, and there is nothing but the cottage in the night barrack or hammock to show that there are any human beings there at all.
Okay, so just that it's lonely.
Okay. It is.
Okay.
So did Jerusalem stand in the middle of desolation, reaching far and wide, a sign, however, that the land was not entirely depopulated.
Sure, okay, sure, I guess. I don't know. I still feel like there's more pros to living in a garden of cucumbers than there are cons, but that's just me.
Well, okay, I'll go on just because it was like right afterwards that we talked about sacrifices, animal sacrifices being not cool anymore in God's eyes.
Because
he
wants cucumber
over
sacrifices.
I guess. I don't know. He's like super into, cukes and tasty veggies and stuff like that. But he said, yeah, to what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me? Save the Lord. This must be King James Bible.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
Yeah.
I am full of the burnt offerings of rams and the fat of fed beasts, and I delight none in the blood of bullocks or of lambs or of he-goats. So basically he's like over it. And it says...
Did you find anything about this when you looked it up?
A little bit. It was tough to find this, but
yeah, I figured.
He said that... Yeah, the sacrifice itself was nothing. The self-dedication, self-renunciation, true devotion of the heart, with its necessary consignment obedience, must accompany sacrifice for God to be pleased therewith. So
yeah, that tracks with something I kind of just incidentally looked up on Defending Inerrancy, my favorite website.
Of course, back there again.
That they clarify that it's not that Yahweh is like, don't sacrifice to me anymore. It's that he hates when you just do the outward show of worship without having the inward show to back it up, you know?
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, he says, I'm full of the burnt offerings of rams. I'm overfull, satiated, wearied with them, essentially, is what he's saying.
He's sick of it.
So just he wants a bigger sacrifice, a bigger show, and he wants it to be internal, not external. I think that's what I'm getting here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that that's always how this has been interpreted for me. It's just about that. It's like, really mean it and don't just go through the motions. But just like so much of the Bible is used to defend all sorts of different positions on things, I think you could easily use this as a pro-vegan or vegetarian approach to things.
Sure.
Or in a different way, you could use it as the argument of like, even back here, Yahweh's saying, don't do sacrifices. Those were a thing before. I don't need them now. I'm full. So that's, I don't know. It's a lot of interesting ways you could look at this. And it's like hard for me to tell if that's a stretch to make it mean that, or if I only think that because it's been so ingrained in me that this other meaning is the only one he could possibly mean. So I don't know. It's an interesting thought.
I don't know. Yeah. Something to think about as we continue to read. So what did you two find?
So I looked into beating swords into plowshares because
beating them into the faces of farmers.
Yeah. Please elaborate what this actually means here.
I was so surprised, Emily, that you had not heard this before, because I remember
that I recall. No,
I remember this in my American history class in college, or not in college, in high school. In my American history class, we covered this, and specifically, I think the context where we talked about it was that there's a sculpture that is in the United Nations art collection, which is a sculpture of a man beating, like with a hammer, turning a sword into a plowshare. And we talked briefly in the class, I remember, about like, this is a reference to this Bible verse, and it's about, peace, like not having war with other nations. Okay. And it apparently was a gift from the Soviet Union to the United States.
Wow.
Wild.
So pre-1992 or whenever that stopped being a thing. But I remember learning about it in that context. But here's what I found when I looked this up to find a little more information. So first of all is that Isaiah is the first reference to it. It is referenced twice more in the Bible. And interestingly, one of the references is in Micah, where it's basically the same sort of thing about beating swords into plowshares. But the other reference is in the book of Joel, which we will get to later on in the Old Testament, which is the opposite. It's saying, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weakling say, I am a warrior.
Whoa.
So we'll get there
turning
eventually.
Turning it on its head.
Yeah.
Isn't that like a song? I am the warrior.
It is a song now. Okay. Are you thinking of I Am Every Woman?
No. I'll find it eventually and play it somehow. Somewhere.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
In this article, though, I thought this was kind of fun. They talked about how, this is from Wikipedia is where I mostly found this. They talked about this kind of idea of swords into plowshares has been used by a lot of different organizations or different social programs, specifically having to do with pacifism or with, moving away from, the mass manufacture of weapons. Specifically, a lot of it has to do with like nuclear disarmament. What was kind of fun, though, is they have a list here of some actual like real world applications of this. One is that after World War II, some military surplus vehicles were converted into bulldozers and logging tractors and things like that were used in the American, farming and logging industries and construction. Several musicians over the years have made guitars out of weapons and things like that as sort of a similar gesture of turning swords into plowshares. Nitrogen mustard. This is wild.
Whoa.
So mustard gas, which was developed during World War I as a chemical weapon, became the basis of nitrogen mustard, which was the world's first chemotherapy drug.
Whoa.
Which was developed in the 40s.
Okay.
That's wild.
Yeah, right? A Swedish organization called Humanium Metal used metal from illegal handguns that were seized to create everyday objects. I guess like silverware and stuff. Another example is GPS. Was originally a satellite system for better targeting of long-range missiles that now is probably still also that. But
I was going to say, I don't think they just stopped using that.
But, that they moved it to civilian things like that. And then there's the megatons to megawatts program, which was introduced in 1993.
1.21 gigawatts.
Gigawatts, yes. Which is a program that successfully has converted 500 metric tons of fuel from Soviet-era nuclear warheads into nuclear power plants over the course of the last however many years.
Interesting.
So anyway, it's fun. And then the last one that I thought was fascinating was this thing called the plowshares movement. The plowshares movement, which was started back in the 80s and is basically a group of people who break into military facilities and try to destroy weapons.
Whoa.
A lot of them are still in prison.
Radical.
A lot of them are still in prison today. The original founders all went to prison for doing that, and 2018 was their last hijinks. So they're still doing their thing. Anyway, I went down a rabbit hole on that. Dedeker,
Indeed.
What did you look up for today?
Well, so I just looked up Zion because I thought that in reading Isaiah that this was our first reference to Zion, but as I researched, I found no, actually the first reference was in 2 Samuel. So a little ways ago. But I just want to give the disclaimer, could go super deep on Zion and Zionism, and I'm not gonna. This is just a bonus episode of a silly drunk Bible study podcast. So don't get mad at me if I didn't cover the angle of Zion or Zionism. That's your favorite angle. Just going to kind of do the basics here. So it first shows up in 2 Samuel. It's a reference to a specific mountain that is outside of Jerusalem or close to Jerusalem. There was a Jebusite fortress there. It was conquered by David at that time.
Cool.
Okay.
And, then it became, basically it just started as a name of one hill close to Jerusalem or near Jerusalem.
Ziony Hill.
One Ziony Hill. And then the term itself has really blossomed to refer to many, 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 many different things.
Even by the time of Isaiah, apparently.
Yes. So it came to be known associated with Jerusalem itself, with the city of David itself. Then it came to be associated with kind of just the abstract notion of the state of Israel, sometimes also the abstract notion of like the afterlife or of paradise or things like that.
Wow.
Okay.
So Zion refers to a lot of things. What I'm most familiar with is the Zionist movement, which started in like the late 1800s, early 1900s, which was a movement towards there being a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine specifically. And, the Zionist movement was very much responsible for the state of Israel being established in the first place.
Okay.
In the 40s, essentially, because there wasn't one before. And so these days, essentially, like, Emily, if you're hearing anybody having like any political discussions about this or whatever, like to refer to someone as being pro-Zion means they're very, very pro-Israel, potentially to the point of like pro-Israel as in they should own all of Palestine, and that's...
And should kick the Palestinians out of their land.
Should kick the Palestinians out. So, a little bit controversial, as it were.
Definitely.
But this concept of Zion shows up with the Mormons as well.
Really? I didn't know that.
Interesting.
Yeah, referring to this like utopian state, essentially. It shows up in Rastafarianism.
Wow.
I mean, if you've listened to any Bob Marley songs, he sings about Zion. Sometimes.
But he might mean a different thing by it.
In Rastafarianism, from my understanding, it's like Zion is kind of associated with Ethiopia, which is kind of associated with like being the birthplace of all humankind, and also is associated with this idea of like we need to repatriate to Zion.
Interesting.
Or at least Rastafarians want to repatriate to Zion.
Wow.
So it's and today, literally, the original mountain that's Mount Zion, is in Jerusalem still.
Okay, so we know what it is. It's not up
we
for
know
debate.
what it is.
We got it. Okay.
There's an abbey that's on it.
Great. Gotta
An
have those.
abbey?
Just
Gotta have those.
Right on top of there. Yeah. So, like you're saying, Emily, this reference to the daughters of Zion is, referring to the Jewish people themselves, or essentially it's a metaphor. It's a symbol.
In this context, it seemed pretty clear that it was just kind of referring to the people in general.
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly. Kind of just the concept. So it's very far reaching. And again, this is just kind of going like surface level deep on a very deep subject, but that's what I got for you. And also, if you remember in the second Matrix movie, Zion was the name of the city where all the humans lived.
I've only seen that once, but
me too.
Yes.
That's as many times as you need to see it. I think that's fine.
You don't need to see it again.
I've probably seen it twice, and that was one too many times. So yeah. Great.
Got it. Lovely. Well, there it is, our very first Drunk Bible Study bonus edition of 2020 fun. We are so excited to continue on this journey with you, this journey of Isaiah and Lin-Manuel Miranda, and learning what happened behind the scenes of all these kings dealing with their stuff and dying and coming back, or I don't know what happened. Anyways, I do, but I don't. I'm excited to see what happens with Isaiah. So anyways, we will see you next week with Isaiah 4 through something.
Yes.
Great.
6? 5?
We'll find out when we get there.
One of those.
Yeah, we'll find out. See you then.
See ya.